Good evening and welcome to our special primary election coverage. I'm Byron Scott. Well, polls opened early this morning and voters trickled into polling sites. Candidates are now hoping their months of campaigning and deep spending will pay off. There are 10 candidates on the Democratic side competing for a Senate seat. County Executive Angela Alsobrooks and Congressman David Trone have been battling it out in the heated U.S. Senate race and are currently viewed as the leading contenders. 15 candidates are vying for 5 seats for the county school board, which has been a contentious board for several years, and 2 of Prince George's County's representatives in Congress are fighting to keep their seats in the primary. We have team coverage tonight, and we bring it all to you with the updates. But first, we turn to Angela Alsobrooks, who could be, she hopes, on the path to make history.
Very excited. I've had a chance to meet so many voters here and across the state.
If she were to win tonight, Angela Alsobrooks would be one step closer to another first.
I mean, it's historic for Prince George's County. You know, there hasn't been a U.S. senator from Prince George's County since 1813 in our state. So it's so important for our county to have a voice at the table.
She'd be in line to be the first black U.S. senator from Maryland and only the 4th black female to serve in the Senate ever. It would be yet another historical first. In 2018, she became the first female county executive in Prince George's. Previously, she became the youngest and first woman to be elected Prince George's County state's attorney.
It's an honor to have an opportunity to run. There have been so many who have paved the way for me to be here today. I'm grateful for that. And I know the voters are considering the historic nature of the race, but they're also considering experience. And when they do that in this primary race and going forward, I believe I have the best experience of anyone.
The primary puts Alsobrooks against Congressman David Trone. The election could help determine the balance of power in the Senate, where Democrats hold a slim 51-49 margin.
She represents a difference between her and the presumptive opponent that she would have that people can get excited about. It will be a historic election. There's no doubt about it.
According to the Washington Post, Alsobrooks rarely explicitly discusses race on the campaign trail, but she does talk about how Marylanders should see themselves in the congressional delegation that, as of right now, is all white and all male.
We have built a very strong coalition. It is a grassroots coalition that's going to be necessary to win in the general election. It is a coalition that appeals to women and younger voters and voters of all backgrounds.
And before Congressman David Trone ran for a U.S. Senate seat, he had a long history in Maryland. Trone, along with his brother Robert, is the founder of Total Wine and More in Maryland. The politician from Cheverly was first elected in 2018 to serve Maryland's 6th congressional district. So far, Trone has spent over $60 million of his own money in the campaign. And this has been a highly anticipated primary election. Voters across Maryland will decide key primary elections with huge implications in the fight for control of the Senate this fall. Joining us in the studio tonight to talk about this and more is CTV News political contributor John Ronquillo, director of the University of Maryland's Institute for Public Leadership. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you, Byron.
Well, of course, the big race, as you know, is the Senate race here in Maryland. What do you expect to happen tonight?
I expect I'm looking for the very last ballot to be counted. I think that it's going to be very close. I think that there are different types of support behind both David Trone and Angela Alsobrooks, but I do think that County Executive Alsobrooks has surged as we've approached primary day, and I think that it's going to be one of those nail biters, and every vote's going to need to be counted.
But it sounds like you don't expect an answer tonight.
You know, I don't know. I would not expect an answer tonight, given how close I think it's going to be. I know early returns are coming in since the polls closed at 8, but it is a race that I think will be testing our patience a little bit.
So where is her strong support? I know she gets a lot from Baltimore City and from Prince George's County, but where else in Maryland?
If you're looking for a Democratic elected official in Maryland, they are most likely supporting Angela Alsobrooks for U.S. Senate. That is something that she is definitely betting from, is the number of endorsements that she has been very strong. So anywhere from Governor Wes Moore, Representative Steny Hoyer, people who have shown that they have clout politically in the state are standing behind Angela Alsobrooks.
And where is his strong support geographically?
Geographically, you know, David Trone has, you know, the western portion of the state certainly has an imprint in his own congressional district where he's going to be drawing a lot from. But obviously his support, as he has mentioned a number of times, comes from himself. As somebody who is self-financed by and large, he is drawing a lot of support from what resources he has.
Now, you've run for office yourself a couple of times. You know what it's like to be in the fight. Now, there have been strong allegations in this contest, allegations of lying on one of the other candidates, and one candidate saying you're going to try to buy the election. What do you think? What are your thoughts about that?
It's something that is an unfortunate natural occurrence in politics sometimes. It's something that I wish we didn't see as much, but sometimes we're grasping at straws in terms of showing our strengths versus our opponent's weaknesses. Fortunately, the bench for leadership in Maryland is very strong, and I believe the primary demonstrates two very strong candidates that bring a lot to the table.
At the end of the day, whoever wins this race will face Larry Hogan. I believe WTOP announced him the winner in this race.
Yes.
What do you foresee in that race? Here we'll go all over again with the deep fighting?
Well, I would anticipate that to a degree. Maryland has obviously been very strongly Democratic for a very long time. A lot of people would have ordinarily said that whoever the victor of the Democratic primary would be our next U.S. Senator. But then there's Larry Hogan, right, who has had a long history in his 2 terms as governor. He was a popular governor, left the state in good fiscal situation. So I think, his sort of last-minute entry into this race really threw a wrench in Democrats' expectations.
But it's one thing to govern and one to legislate. And
Absolutely.
also in legislating is the issue with the other senators that you may walk in lockstep with. What do you foresee happening here? What are the issues?
You know, a lot of the issues, obviously there are issues that are near and dear to a lot of folks' heart. Access to abortion is something that is a very hot button issue, especially in terms of the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And so I think a lot of people are going to turn out on issues. And I think that it's going to be another nail biter for the general because Larry Hogan did so well as governor of Maryland and does have statewide recognition in terms of who will recognize his name and be able to vote for him.
And he was popular here. Will that translate into popularity as he runs for the Senate race?
You know, I think it can. I think it can. As you mentioned, governing is different from being a legislator. That would go, for County Executive Brooks as well, right, who has had executive experience. And so I think these are seasoned professionals. They've been in this game for a long time. I think that they will have short learning curves, but I do believe there is a learning curve going into a congressional seat no matter who you are and what preparation you've had.
Okay, John Monquillo, don't go away. We'll talk to you some more, a little more on the show.
Great.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a short break, but stay with us as we continue our special 2024 primary election coverage. You're watching CTV News.
We hear the stories of people forced to abandon their home. The stories of people whose dreams have been swept away, or their lives left hanging by a thread. Or whose worlds have been blasted apart. Although the stories repeat themselves, each person's experience is unique as they are. And whether it's care or community that people need, we're here to help them live a new chapter, to embrace what makes them unique, be a lifeline to the most vulnerable.
Out! Out! Everybody out! Come on!
Good job. Under 2 minutes.
Keep your loved ones safe from home fires. Practice a 2-minute drill until it's part of your routine. And test your smoke alarms monthly.
In America, millions of families are facing hunger.
After rent and power, I can get groceries. It's sad to say food comes last. Anna from Texas.
The Feeding America network of food banks helps provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Together, we can end hunger. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
When people ask us who we are, we tell them we're problem solvers, opportunity creators, community builders, and change makers. We are Rotary. Around the world, our network of 1.4 million neighbors, friends, and leaders volunteer their skills, expertise, and resources to solve issues and address community needs. We are people of action. Join us, and together, we can make an even greater impact. Find out how you can get involved at rotary.org/action.
Welcome back. Earlier, we spoke to a range of voters tonight as they were heading back home to learn what they were looking for in the candidates.
I'm looking for a candidate that cares for people and all these crimes, stop, shooting, all those things. That's mainly who care for people.
I prefer what they say to you to do that thing, not go all around the bushes or somewhere else, you know?
I look for a candidate that seems like they're positive and positive attitude and have a lot of compassion for the city. I also look at their honesty and their history of what they have done in the past.
Well, I look for somebody nowadays who is not MAGA. And I look for somebody who doesn't think the black experience is having drunks and losing your home. I mean, it's tough out here.
And in Chilham tonight, Governor Westmore among those greeting voters with Angela Alsobrooks. Other elected officials were on hand as well as the candidate made the rounds for last-minute campaigning, making the case for Alsobrooks.
I want people to know that that while this might be the battle, the war is November. So much is on the line for November. We're talking about everything from reproductive health to are we actually going to have an economy that works for everybody to are we going to have common sense gun laws. We know the alternative, and we know that come November we're going to be facing somebody in the old governor who frankly does not have the values for many Marylanders, particularly when we're talking about what it's going to mean for the U.S. Senate. We do not want to give the U.S. Senate to the Republican Party. We do not want a rubber stamp for Mitch McConnell, and so we're excited to watch the county executive not just be our representative, but to go out and win in November.
And the big question, can Angela Alsobrooks defeat David Trone in the primary? That's the question on everyone's mind tonight. CTV News' Katara Jones at the Alsobrooks Watch Party in Greenbelt with more on this story.
I'm inside the Angela Alsobrooks Election Watch Night Party in Greenbelt, and right now this banquet room at Martin's Crosswinds is empty, but we soon expect it to be filled with Alsobrooks supporters. Now, Alsobrooks is running to be Maryland's next U.S. Senator, but in order to do that, she will have to defeat fellow Democrat David Trone in tonight's primary. If she's able to do that, she will most likely go against Republican Larry Hogan in November. Now, what makes this election significant is that if Alsobrooks beats Trone tonight and then wins the election in November, she would become the first black person from Maryland to serve in the U.S. Senate. Now, CTV News will continue to provide our viewers at home with all the updated election results. Katara Jones, CTV News.
And some voters were shocked to find several of the early voting sites and common locations used for voting not open to voters today. The Wayne K. Curry Sports and Learning Complex typically serves as a polling location for voters. However, for the primary today, it was not operating as a voting location. CTV News spoke to a voter who was stunned to learn this news.
More communication needs to be done to the community to let them know what's going on. We're basically basing our information off of the pamphlet and information that's received in the mail. And if that's not correct, then the system, someone needs to take a look at the system.
And there are 2 congressional seats open in the county. Both representatives are up for re-election. Congressman Glenn Ivey in District 4 is facing 3 Democratic opponents, and Congressman Steny Hoyer faces 3 Democratic opponents in District 5. Some of the biggest issues they have to respond to will have national and international implications. Back with us again is our political contributor, John Ronquillo, Director of the Institute for Public Leadership at the University of Maryland. Thanks for staying with us. Let's talk about the congressional races that you just heard with Districts 4, 5, and 8. Glenn Ivey, challengers, has Chancellor Steny Hoyer and Jimmy Raskin. What do you expect? Any surprises here, or?
No, all safe seats. I think that we can expect to see Congressman Ivey, Congressman Hoyer, and Congressman Raskin back in their jobs.
And I guess the most interesting race, I believe that's District 3, former U.S. Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn running a tight race against Senator Sarah Elfreth. Watching that one?
I am, absolutely. That's actually my home district.
Okay.
So keeping a keen eye on that. I think, Mr. Dunn has a compelling story in terms of his background as a U.S. Capitol Police officer. I think that is something that has endeared people to the events of January 6th. Sarah Elfreth, on the other hand, is a lawmaker, a state senator who has experience legislating, and I think that's going to be a tight one. My understanding is she was leading at the last drop, but definitely one to keep an eye on.
Will his experience give him any traction with voters?
I'm not sure. He is a first-time candidate. He does have that story, obviously, that people are going to listen to, and it's an interesting story given the nature of it and the history of January 6th. But I do think that demonstrating the capacity to legislate and to lead on behalf of a constituency is something very important, and that's something where he would need to distinguish himself should he be elected tonight.
So on top of all this, we go to the polls in November. The big race, of course, is for the presidential campaign. How will all this impact everything?
I think so far people are looking at the returns that have come tonight. Nobody's surprised that Joe Biden and Donald Trump are the clear winners. We've known this before primary night even came about. But I do think that as these individuals, incumbents, keep their seats, people are hoping that the numbers will swing in favor of the president, that he will continue into a second term.
So unlike in the Senate, the balance of power is not in question in the House, or is it?
It's tight because we are seeing a number of current representatives who are deciding that their time is up. They are resigning, they're leaving, exactly. And so it's going to be a curious night when it comes down to the general for some congressional seats. But we do know that the balance of power in the Senate is obviously, we're walking a tightrope there. And we know that it's already Vice President Harris is the tie-breaking vote in that chamber.
So the issue is bringing folks to the polls in November, I presume abortion?
One of many, sure.
What else?
People are always going to bring it back to the economy. We heard Governor Moore earlier on his soundbite say, an economy that works for all. And that's something that I think that a lot of people are going to be looking at. We're paying attention to the Fed. Are they going to adjust rates or not? And I think, people always look at their pocketbook, right? They look at gas prices. They look at these easy economic indicators in terms of how they are most affected. And those things influence their vote.
Let's talk back again about Trump and Biden. Trump seemed to be leading in some very close states. What are your thoughts about how it's going to work out? Is it back to Biden this fall or back to Trump?
I've seen, the pollsters and the people and the pundits who have all their opinions. They're going different ways. A lot of us are really curious about that. Obviously, we can't put all of our faith in polls. But there are interesting and compelling reasons as to why there could be another Donald Trump presidency. But I do think that incumbency also has its benefits, and I think that there are a number of people out there who are truly coming out swinging for President Biden.
So the bigger issues this fall, do you think it's the abortion issue or the economy or both? What do you think outweighs one or the other?
I think it's both. I think one of the things, again, those easy indicators of what affects American families is what's going to be really compelling. I do think that access to abortion and health care are things that people are going to pay very close attention to. And I think that will affect potentially affect the outcome of our presidential race as well.
Okay, John Ronquillo, University of Maryland, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Come back again. And still to come on the news tonight, supporters of one of the main contenders for the U.S. Senate seat is getting ready to see all those polling numbers come in. Mariah Jalad is there with the Trone campaign in Baltimore.
We're at the Museum of Industry in Baltimore, where David Trone's campaign is getting ready to kick off their election night watch party. So we have campaign workers and supporters here getting ready to cheer on who they believe can take on Larry Hogan in the November Senate race. The businessman and representative has already poured over $60 million into his campaign to beat Angela Alsobrooks tonight, and Trone says he's prepared to do and spend whatever it takes to beat Hogan. Trone says he has the experience and the voting record from his current position representing Maryland's 6th District to make the right decisions for Maryland in the Senate. The party is just getting started, and Trone supporters are eager to celebrate what they hope will be an exciting win tonight. From Baltimore, Mariah Jalad, CTV News.
The school board race in the county has 5 seats open in 5 districts throughout the county. In District 1, incumbent David Murray is up against 3 contenders. In District 4, Shayla Adams Stafford is not being challenged. In the 5th district, the race is between 4 candidates, with Zephora Miller being the incumbent. Incumbent Kenneth Harris II is going up against 3 candidates in District 7. And in District 8, incumbent Madeline Frazier is up against 2 vying for her seat. And last-minute voters made their way to the polls before polls closed tonight at 8 o'clock, and we spoke with a few last-minute voters.
When you're voting, what do you look for in a candidate?
Someone who's looking out for our community, someone who's running on the platform that they're looking out for our kids, our community, and what's best for us.
I look for a lot of things in a candidate. If the candidate is for me and my family, who can basically do things in Congress or the White House that is important to me and my family. Who can do things in the world that benefits the United States, benefits my family here in Maryland.
Just somebody like that when they are auditioning for the position. I kind of look for everything that they say they're going to do. I kind of like research them and look and kind of make sure that that's like what they're going to do what they preach they're going to do, basically.
Okay. Right. And if I can ask, who did you vote for?
Yeah, so I voted for Allsbrook, Hoyer, and Biden.
And if the rain kept you from getting out to vote today, you might want to look into early voting or mail-in ballots for future elections. Mail-in ballots needed to be in official Board of Elections drop boxes by 8 o'clock tonight or postmarked by today's date in order to count. CTV spoke with the county's Board of Elections. During the early voting, they received over 17,000 mail-in ballots, and they may still be counting them through next Friday.
So the for sure final count, we start canvassing on May 16th, and that canvassing process goes through May 24th. Votes are certified on May 24th, so that's when you receive the actual official count as to what the election results are.
And we'll have more news coming up. Don't go away.
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is him. Every day he's hungry for something. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that he's a good person. I think the advice I would give is you don't need to know all the answers. It's okay to make mistakes. As long as it's coming from love, then it kind of starts to work itself out.
The death of George Floyd, who died in police custody Monday night.
Turning my pain into purpose is pretty much what I have done to start this foundation. It's going to take more than just us, you know, as a foundation. It's going to take the community, the world, to help us make a change, because it just can't be us.
Having low income can mean making tough choices, choosing between paying for food or medication. or a place to live is a reality for many people. Do you know someone who could use some extra help? Find out about the Supplemental Security Income Program, SSI. You could receive monthly SSI payments if your income and financial resources are low and you are 65 or older, or an adult or child with a disability or who is blind. SSI is money you can use to help pay for basic needs, like putting food on the table, keeping the lights on, paying the rent. It can mean new shoes for growing feet or help with medical needs. Call 1-800-772-1213 or visit ssa.gov/SSI to schedule an appointment or start to apply today. That's ssa.gov/SSI. Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
And here are the latest numbers in the U.S. Senate race right now. We have Also Brooks ahead 50.1 to David Trone's 46%. Once again, that's Also Brooks at 50.1% and Congressman David Trone at 46%. And that wraps up our news coverage tonight of the election. I'm Byron Scott. We'll see you tomorrow.
To a child battling a critical illness, a wish can feel like a dream. But with your help, it isn't out of reach. Wishes are an important part of medical treatment. A chance for kids to see themselves stronger, braver, to see that the impossible is possible. Wishes can give kids the strength to fight, to get better, to grow up. Where there's a wish, there's a way.